For our sermon this evening, a little something for the adults, and then I promise something also for the second through third graders in the room. So bear with me. I do not understand the Jewish tradition's beef with Queen Vashti. In the Talmud, the rabbis paint her as irredeemably evil. They add elements to her story. They say she was the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar, the wicked enemy of the Jews. They say she forced the Jewish women of Shushan to do demeaning work on Shabbat. They imagine that the reason she doesn't want to dance for the king is that she is disfigured by leprosy. The Midrash adds all of these elements to the story to cast Vashti as yet another villain in the tale. But none of that is present in the text itself. There we are told next to nothing about Vashti. All we know is that while her husband entertains the men, Vashti holds a party for the women. Then we are told that the king sends a eunuch to deliver a message to the ladies' night that he wants Vashti to come to his party and display her beauty for all of his friends. And we are told that she refuses. We are not told why, and Vashti is never given any direct dialogue. She quickly disappears from the story. For more on the meaning of her absence from the narrative, you'll have to come back tomorrow morning to hear Rihanna's beautiful sermon, beautiful Devar Torah at her bat mitzvah. But suffices to say that the text gives us very little to indicate that Vashti is a villain. And if anything, it is her act of defiance that leads to her banishment, which opens the door for Esther's rise. Jewish tradition should be overflowing with praise for her, but it's not. Throughout the ages, Jewish text has picked on Vashti, demeaning her in almost the exact way she refused from her king. It's not until the 19th century that Vashti started to be redeemed. Her story was picked up by the early feminist thinkers, many of them Jewish women, who reclaimed Vashti as a role model for their work. In 1878, Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote that this moment was the first stand for women's rights, and that we shall stand amazed that there was a woman found at the head of the Persian Empire that dared to disobey the command of even a drunken monarch. And about 20 years later, the suffragette Elizabeth Cady Stanton called Vashti a sublime representation of self-centered womanhood. And Stowe and Stanton were writing more than a century before #MeToo. It's worth noting that as Vashti's star rose, Esther's faded in the eyes of the feminist activists. They tended to see Esther as too passive, too meek to be an icon. As Rabbi Tamara Cohen has written, for some, Esther suddenly became a negative symbol for all women who use their sexuality, enjoying their beauty, fear confrontation, and remain married to power. These interpretations of Esther minimized her courage in directly confronting both Achashverosh and Haman, and in coming out as a Jew after years of hiding her identity. Today, we can claim both as icons. We can be open enough to models of feminism and activism that include diverse perspectives like Vashti, the iconoclast who spoke truth to power even though it cost her dearly, and Esther, who took time to find her voice and used cunning strategy to make a change. As I read their story, I cannot help but think of the ongoing protests in Iran, where women are also risking everything to stand together against an oppressive regime. And I think of the leading role that women are playing in the ever-growing protest movement in Israel against the so-called judicial reforms that threaten democracy. 2 Shabbats ago, a group of 100 women marched through the center of Tel Aviv in total silence to demonstrate how the people's voice was being quashed. I even heard a story this week of one woman who wanted to protest the proposed even more stringent modesty laws at the Western Wall in Jerusalem, so she showed up to pray in her bikini. All of these women, lifting their voices or marching in silence, putting their bodies on the line in a myriad of ways, remind us that it takes all kinds of activism to stand against oppression, discrimination, and misogyny. To stand against the patriarchy, we need all the Esthers, all the Vashtis. We need all the Rihannas and Mias. We need all of your voices, each shouting in your own style, each brave in your own way. I recently read a modern midrash that sets out to imagine what happens in Vashti's party that made her say no to the king. It is my new favorite children's book. It's called Queen Vashti's Comfy Pants by Rabbi Leah Rachel Berkowitz. And so tonight, to lift up and reclaim Vashti's voice, which was silenced for too many centuries, I want to share it with you. In her rumpus room, Queen Vashti sat in comfy pants and a funny hat. She played gin rummy all night long and sang her favorite silly song. And all Queen Vashti's friends were there in comfy pants and braided hair. They told Queen Vashti one by one, "We've never had quite this much fun. How quiet it is without the boys. We're tired of their constant noise. Today we're free from itchy dresses and steering clear of spills and messes." Meanwhile, on the palace lawn, the king had danced from dusk till dawn. His party had stretched on for days. His mind was in a sugared haze. And now his friends were bored and blue. They'd plumb run out of things to do. "We could play wiffle ball again," said the king's advisors then. The king stood up and said, "I know. Let's make the queen put on a show. Queen Vashti is just down the hall. I'll send a messenger to call." So just a little after 4, a knock rang out on Vashti's door. The messenger declared, "I bring an urgent message from the king. Queen Vashti must at once come down in her finest dress and royal crown and dance for all the king's good friends until his royal party ends." "Now, hold it," Vashti scolded. "Freeze. Could he at least say thanks or please?" Queen Vashti found this very rude. She did not like his attitude. She told the messengers, "Please go and tell the king that I said no. And if you could, please do explain, I have my friends to entertain. I will not don my royal crown or change into a fancy gown. I am not in the mood to dance, for I am in my comfy pants." The king was shocked to hear this news. How could Queen Vashti dare refuse? This was to him a crushing blow, for no one ever told him no. The king's friends sneered and stood up straight. "No king should have to sit and wait. Send word to Vashti's room and say she must come down here right away. Make Vashti's friends come sing a tune and waltz beneath a harvest moon and pour our tea and bring us sweets while we recline on velvet seats." The messenger crept down the hall. He did not like this plan at all. He gently knocked on Vashti's door and whispered what the king had asked for. Queen Vashti answered, "Sir, please go and tell the king that I said no. You cannot tell me what to do. I'm royal just as much as you. These sweets are for my friends and me. It's not our job to pour your tea. We are not in the mood to dance, for we are in our comfy pants." The messenger slumped down the hall and braced himself against the wall. The king began to rage and fume and marched himself to Vashti's room. He pounded down Queen Vashti's door and stomped across the marble floor. The teacups trembled on the tray, but Vashti calmly looked away. "You must come dance," the monarch cried. His face burned red with wounded pride. "And I demand your friends come too, or I'll make mincemeat out of you." The queen's friends stood and hollered, "No, we're happy here and we won't go. We are not in the mood to dance, for we are in our..." The king's face twisted in a frown. "You're done here if you don't come down. Have you forgotten who I am? Your choice is simple: dance or scram." Queen Vashti said, "Then that is that," and tipped the brim of her funny hat. "You cannot tell us what to do, so king, I think I'm done with you." Queen Vashti took her suitcase down. She packed her jewels, her royal crown, and sturdy shoes and potted plants and 7 pairs of comfy pants. She told her friends, "Please come with me. There's so much world out there to see." Her friends responded one by one, "Together, we'll have so much fun." So just a little after 8, the women stormed the palace gate. They left without a backward glance to conquer the world in their comfy pants. It is my hope that we can mine our tradition for all the different role models we need to stand against oppression wherever we find it and to find our own voices to do it. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Purim Sameach.